My fellow introverts, if you were looking into marketing your indie game, I have something awesome to show you. And that and so much more coming up. What's up guys, Tim Ruswick here from Game Dev Underground. If you're new here, we post videos on marketing and motivation for game development, so consider subscribing and hit the bell to make sure you get notifications when we post new videos, which we post daily. But today we're going to talk about indie game marketing for introverts, and this is based on a blog post that I did a while now ago. It was probably a couple months, and it was titled the same thing, Indie Game Marketing for Introverts, 3 Tips for Social Survival. And so I'm going to share those tips and kind of my thoughts on those still today, because one of the things that I have struggled with, is I really was not very good socially for a very long time. And I always considered myself an introvert. I always felt like people would drain me. They would drain my energy being around them. And I like to be alone. I like to recharge my batteries that way. And weirdly, I ended up running a marketing company, so I had to force myself into some of these social situations. I'm not kidding when I say phone calls literally used to terrify me. I would get a phone call from a client, my heart would start racing. I would have to ignore the call because I was so anxious that I could not answer the call. And usually I would email them and say, sorry, I missed your call. What did you need? Or something like that. It took me a long time to build up the courage to call back and then to eventually answer. And then now I actually prefer phone calls. So that was a big, that's not easy to do, to go from that level of anxiety around something like phone calls to preferring phone calls as a means of communication. So my top number one tip for marketing that works for me for introverts was to pick the medium that works for you. So in my phone call example, phone calls they weren't working for me. When I was in that state of not wanting to communicate with people, I was really nervous, I was really anxious, and my brain would go blank when I would talk to people. Phone calls just didn't work for me, and so I stuck to email. And the same thing when I started using social media, Twitter. I liked the passive nature of Twitter. Even if you've been around Game Dev Underground, we used to do live Friday chats. I didn't like that. I didn't like having to be in one place at 6 p.m. on a Friday to talk to everybody, and then having for an hour trying to discuss stuff with everybody and communicate and get everybody to talk and interact and all that stuff. It gave me anxiety, and I would think about it the whole day at 6 p.m. I had to be set up and ready and all that. I didn't like that. So one of the things that I actually did was I moved to YouTube, because YouTube is more passive for me. I can film 5 videos at a time and post them 5 different days in a row. I can, wherever I'm at, if I need a video for tomorrow and I don't have one, I could just whip out my phone and literally record myself wherever I'm at. The medium just works better for me, right? And back in the day when I was an introvert, I actually couldn't get on camera, so that wouldn't have worked for me either back then. So I stuck to Twitter to communicate with people, and email for actually communicating with clients. So just think about what works for you, right? You don't have to use all the social media platforms. You don't have to use all the different means of communication. Find what works for you as an introvert, what you're comfortable with, where you feel the most powerful, and use that. For me now, beyond phone calls, I actually feel more powerful in person. I feel, especially at an event, if I've come to the event, I feel like I'm me. I feel like the extroverted side of me now. And so it's more powerful, but I didn't start out that way. I started out with just email, right? And I needed to stick to that for a long time while I kind of built up my tolerances for all this other stuff. So find what works for you and stick to it. That's number one tip for introverts. 2, a lot of social interaction for introverts can take courage, right? It's scary. It takes facing your fears sometimes if you're scared of, meeting people or what you're going to say or What if you go in a room and you just like stand there and nobody talks to you for like a networking event or something? So one of the things that I did was I would schedule my courage, and that's tip number 2. It's hard, man. Like it's especially when you're scared. Like you're not scared of people, but you like. It's just uncomfortable. It's anxious. It's not a comfortable position to be in, and scheduling that time can work well. Like it can cause anxiety for sure. Like when I would schedule the chats at 6 p.m. it caused anxiety, but it was much less anxiety, and it was much better than forced social interaction that would happen to me randomly, right? Like I remember like random friends seeing me at like Starbucks or something, or like some not a close friend, but like someone I knew. That would just give me anxiety because then I'd have to be in this conversation, I have to talk to this person, and like I don't know what to say. I haven't seen them forever. Like situations that I weren't prepared for always drained me way more than situations I was prepared for. And so when I started with phone calls, even though they were still scary for me, it helped a lot to have a scheduled phone call with a client. It helped a lot to have a scheduled phone call with, a press interview or whatever it was I was doing. Even with friends, to schedule, okay, Tuesday at 4, we'll hang out. That helped me a lot. It helped me get past my fears of like these phone calls or in-person interactions, because I wouldn't have to worry about them happening randomly. And especially with clients, like some clients would just randomly call me, and that would fucking make me anxious as shit. I hated it. But as I started realizing, okay, scheduling helps better, so I would tell the client that. I would make sure that was clear, and I would email them like, hey, let's set up a call for 4 p.m. Tuesday or whatever. And that was much easier for me to deal with. So pick your medium, right? But the mediums that you think will be beneficial, but scare you or kind of you don't quite have the courage to do yet, schedule them. Schedule time to, write tweets or do whatever. Schedule your interaction. Schedule your socialness, if you will. Just schedule it. So yeah, it's a little anxious leading up to the point, but it's a lot easier than random forced interaction or feeling this need. I need to market my shit. And then not doing it. And then you feel guilty for it and all that. So scheduling it makes it a little more manageable and simple. Tip number 3, prepare materials in advance. And this is really important. This is kind of like scheduling, but it's a little bit different because, for me, one of the reasons that I would have a lot of anxiety when I would go and try and market my stuff or talk to a client or whatever it was would be from the fact that I was kind of unprepared, and I was kind of relying on myself to be able to get through the conversation all in my head. Now, I've built the ability to do that over time. In fact, like these videos, I sit down, I talk to the camera, stuff comes from my heart. But originally it was not easy. I had to have a script. I was like super camera shy. I had to do like 100 takes. All that was really complicated for me. Dude, I wasn't even comfortable taking pictures of myself. It took me 2 hours to get the courage with my camera when I was in San Francisco to film myself in front of other people. It was terrifying. Okay, 2 hours. I'm not even joking. I'm not even exaggerating that. So being prepared for a certain situation, being prepared for what it entails, even if you can't cover everything that you need to be prepared, helped me a lot. So for example, if I was meeting with a client, right, let's say I was going to build their game, because I do freelance game stuff. One of the things I would do is I would research their company. I would write like 3 lines, 3 notes on what I like about their website or whatever. I would come up with a few game concepts. I would have them listed out with the different stuff. I would have points ready for the meeting. And so when I met with this person, I didn't just have to figure out everything to say. I could actually go through my notes and say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. What do you think of this idea? What do you think of this? And being prepared really, really helped me a lot. It helped me a lot with the interaction, helped me a lot with that stuff. So same thing with like networking, right? Like, knowing that I'm going to go to this place, knowing the interaction that I'm going to have, I would prepare questions to ask people. I would prepare, like, beyond just like, who are you, what do you do? Like, I would prepare actual questions for certain type of people, and that helped me a lot because I could recall these questions. Sometimes my brain would go blank, so I would keep like a little post-it note, or I have a little tiny, I don't know where it's at, but I have a little tiny moleskin notebook that fits in my pocket, which I used to keep around a lot for reminding myself of that stuff. But this also works again for like tweets, preparing your entire, like if tweeting out gives you anxiety, because I know it used to me, for me, like you have 100 people following you and you're scared of like tweeting. I know for people that are past this, it seems like that's weird, but I know for people that are in it, it's very real, right? Like it feels scary. Preparing all those tweets ahead of time, you can write 28 tweets at one time, and you can schedule them out with Buffer or with any one of these Twitter tools out there, and then you only have to do it once a month. So that kind of combines scheduling and preparing, because let's say at the first of the month you can schedule out your whole month of tweets. Now in development, when you're like working out loud and that kind of stuff, it can get complicated because you know, it's not, you want to share the stuff, the most relevant stuff, but you can actually do this in work with a delay, right? Like you can schedule the next month's tweets to post last month's content. People don't know the difference, and it's really not important, the specific details of that stuff, as long as you have content marketing, as long as you get that out there, and as long as you share the stuff that gets people talking about you, and that interests them, right, and adds value to their life. So preparing is really, really important, and I think out of all the different things I've mentioned here, as an introvert, preparing has really helped me a lot. Whenever I feel anxious or I feel unsure about specific marketing or a meeting or whatever it is, preparing a little bit for the meeting usually makes me feel a ton better. And I noticed too, it has a really big impact on people, especially in like in-client meetings, but also, you know, like on Twitter, if you post every day and you got a screenshot of your game or a new feature or a new something, people look at that, they don't realize that it's all scheduled, they just see the end product and they're like, wow, this guy's got his shit together, or, you know, this guy knows what he's doing. It makes you look more consistent. It makes you look like you are very serious about what you're doing. Whereas, you know, it's hard to tweet every day. It is, man, especially like if it has a social factor to it, it makes you anxious or whatever. You know, and Twitter's just an example, but you can use this for everything. I use it for YouTube. I don't film every day usually. Sometimes I do, but I don't. I film a lot of videos at one time and then I post them once a day. So it makes me look really consistent, right? Like it makes you go like, wow, how does this guy film videos every day? I don't film videos every day. I schedule them out. Usually I'm way ahead on the videos that I post for you guys, because I want to make sure that it's consistent. And from the outside, it looks like it is consistent. It looks like I do this daily. It looks like I have everything ready to go. But I just know how to prepare stuff. I know how to be prepared for a situation. I also know how to prepare for, you know, like if something happens, if the power goes out, if the internet goes out, if I have to make an emergency trip to LA or any other city, or, you know, if, you know, anything could happen. Random shit could happen. So just being prepared is always a good tip, but it's especially a good tip when it comes to introverts, because I know that usually eliminates a lot of the anxiety from my life. Being prepared, I don't have to dread like every day, you know, interacting with people if I can schedule my interactions. And like I said, this has gotten a lot better. A lot of people don't even realize that I'm an introvert when they meet me. It's hard to tell these days. Like it's just because I've communicated with people so much, I've done it so much, and you know, this is a completely different subject for a different video, but I don't think introvert is a permanent thing that's like you are that and you are that for eternity. I think social skills can be learned. I think extroversion can be learned. Yeah, like solitude is good, right? Like especially some people just like their alone time. I like my alone time. But it doesn't mean that I can't be social. It doesn't mean that I can't be effectively social. It doesn't mean that I can't do marketing. Some people believe introverts are just not good at marketing, and that's not true. I'm an introvert. I built a whole marketing company. So that's all my thoughts for today. I hope you guys found it useful. Until next time, once again, I'm Tim Ruswick. Leave me a comment if you have any top tips on how you as an introvert interact with the world, or some of the things that you've learned while marketing as an introvert, because I always love to learn. But until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.